Hey, Suveet, very excited to have you. Thank you so much for giving us your time and talking to our audience.
Thank you so much, Abhay. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I mean, it's a first meeting with you, but I'm quite thrilled just with the look of it because GetBit being in a Bitcoin only exchange, a Bitcoin only brokerage, I think that's what really interests me. People, when they stay away from shitcoins and focus on the real deal, and I think that's the start of a good conversation with a good friend, perhaps in the future.
Thank
Please
you.
go.
Thank you so much for your kind words. So, Suveet, please introduce yourself to our audience. Who is Suveet Kalra?
So I am basically a guy who's been an entrepreneur all my life since 1997 when I started my journey. So I was into a chemicals trading business. I set up shop in India and we were distributing German adhesives, lacquers, and construction chemicals. So we had a pretty good staff, and by 2015, had pretty grown. I mean, we'd grown pretty big. Eventually, we sold that company to Nippon Paints Singapore, and from there on I ventured into a journey for opening restaurants because honestly I was traveling so much. I couldn't give time to my first daughter because I was traveling like 20 days in a month. So I thought I'm going to do something which is going to be stationary in Delhi and Gurgaon. So we opened a couple of beautiful restaurants, and I think that's where the 56 inch Bahubali Thali and the United India Thali and all these revolutionary products came into our stable. We went pretty viral. Even the employees of Facebook came in and actually dined with us, the senior team.
Wow.
Boston Daily, Washington, New York Times, everybody covered us, including the Indian media and social influencers across the world. So I think that was a pretty decent journey. Eventually, we've sold that business as well. Now we've exited the restaurant business last year. I'm now into a loan aggregation business. So basically, we are a secured lending marketplace. It's an online portal. So you can think of us like a Make My Trip, but for loans. We are the consumer interface between you and banks and non-banking financial institutions with whom we have our APIs linked. So we try and do a matchmaking based on your credit score, and we give you the loan at the best possible rate. So the point is, I'm working in the TradFi banking side at the moment during my day job, and at evenings on fireside chats like you, I'm telling you how banks are really badly fucked, in the future. Because the point is that what is the asset side of banks? The assets are mostly treasuries, mortgage-backed securities and treasuries. So if you look at the commercial real estate sector in the US, if you look at the treasuries after the inflation and the interest rate hike, all these banks are underwater, literally on the asset side. It's just that they're not marked it to market because of the Ponzi nature of the fiat economy. But if it were to be trading like Bitcoin, they would have actually sold those treasuries long back ago, and they would have marked to market the losses, and I think the whole system would have collapsed. But I think the system is designed in such a way that the collateral value has to go up, and there is no way they can afford the collateral value to go down. That's why we all feel so asset rich, but all these assets have counterparty risk. And if you want to go on a Bitcoin journey, you understand that Bitcoin is the only bearer asset which has no counterparty risk. And it is completely digital, so verifiable over the internet. Unlike a bar of gold, you'll have to melt it down to see if it's gold or it's iron or it's tungsten or whatever. So, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is that perfect money. And that's something which I found out in 2017, but I ignored because I was running restaurants and I really didn't care. And I thought it was a Ponzi. But eventually, when I lost all my money in all these scams that were running at that time, like BitConnect and I don't know, Bit, BitConnect, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
BitConnect.
BitConnect was the scam. Yeah. So I don't even remember, but yeah, the BitConnect scam. And then in
So I
2020,
actually transitioned. I actually wanted to ask you this whole question in terms of from being an entrepreneur so successful, selling your company to Asian Paints, which is like almost a dream come true for 99% of entrepreneurs, running such a successful restaurant business where you get covered by all the large media houses, to discovering Bitcoin. What has been that journey?
so, I mean, I think the light bulb moment, if you're talking about, I think that light bulb moment was the COVID nightmare because COVID really hit the hospitality sector pretty hard,
Yeah, yeah.
and we were in the hospitality sector, so we were suffering huge losses. And then the money printing began, and the stock market kept rising and rising. And I was like, the whole world is bloody burning, and the stock markets are rising. What could be the story behind it? So then you go dig deeper. Just like Michael Saylor. I mean, he's like his company is on the brink of collapse, and everything else is rising. He has a cash flow. He has a cash position of $500 million or $600 million, but his company is valued at $400 million. So basically, that cash is entirely discounted, and even the revenue from the operating business is discounted. So, I mean, I kind of went really deep into the rabbit hole because of COVID. We all had a lot of time, so I started learning. Initially, I mean, started learning coding as well. I'm a
Oh,
self-taught coder, self-learned from the internet. I learned Python, I learned JavaScript, I learned Solidity. I can now code on the Solana blockchain using Rust or Anchor. So the point is that it kind of really intrigued me, and then I came across the Bitcoin standard by Saifuddin, and that kind of really opened my eyes as to. And then the Fiat standard came, and then broken money. So you go on that evolution of journey of what exactly money is, and how money should be a neutral ledger for everybody in the world. But at the moment, there is no neutral ledger. I mean, US treasuries are the bedrock of modern finance, but the US can weaponize it. And it already has, as we've seen in
yeah,
the past in 2022, when they took away the reserves of Russia. So
yeah.
then you understand that, okay, only gold and Bitcoin are money. Everything else is credit. And we're living in a debt based Ponzi fiat monetary system, which is just meant to expand and deflate your savings. And if you're a debtor, if you've taken a lot of money from banks or whatever, and you've grown that and put into productive assets like businesses which generate income or assets which generally grow in value like real estate or whatever, then you tend to do pretty well in life. But if you're a saver, then you're getting punished. You're really getting punished because the rate of monetary debasement is about 7-8%. Add on top of it the CPI inflation, which in India until now is about 5%. So you are actually falling behind by 12% in relative purchasing power terms as compared to the rest of the world if you're just doing nothing and putting into a bank account. Even if you're putting into a fixed deposit or a checking deposit, as you call it in the US, you get 5-6%, which means that you're getting poorer by 6% every year. So that kind of really opened my eyes, and I understood that this is an entire Ponzi scheme that we've been running
But
all
let me
along.
pause you here, Suveet.
Yeah.
You are running you've sold your company, you've made cash, and most probably that cash is in the stock market. I know from a COVID perspective, the restaurant business is bleeding, but your cash and investment, you are in the high upper net worth criteria. Set of people who has assets, so your assets are doing well most likely. And whenever I have been
No, I think I'll
reading.
tell you where I went wrong. Actually, I put in a lot of debt. There was a lot of when you have a company, and on the company, if you have a lot of debt, so I mean, sometimes the ratio breaks.
Yeah.
And what happened in COVID was that sometimes the things started to deflate, and plus my cash flow was absolutely zero, and then my outgoing was a lot. So I actually kind of lost about 300-400,000 dollars at that time during COVID.
Wow.
Now, what happened was that eventually I started to understand this whole Ponzi, and I started to liquidate my assets, which I did at a pretty good time. So, but I kept paying off those debts. Now I'm completely debt free, and I understand that whatever assets I build from here on, and the best asset being Bitcoin, then I will grow further in life. So I had to restructure a lot in that sense. Being in the stock market, investing in companies, fair enough. But even in the stock market, you get an average of about 10%. And if you look at it in dollar terms, the average return has been pretty dismal in the Nifty and the BSC if you compare it to Nasdaq. Because if let's say if I were to be investing in the US stock market since 2020, I would have done actually 75% more than what I'm actually if I invested in the Indian stock market because of the US dollar Indian rupee depreciation as well. So you've got to understand that uh, at the end of the day it's a relative world. And what are the desired assets? Everybody wants to have a Miami beachfront, or everybody wants to have a mansion in France. But the point is the exchange rate will also kill you. Like now the US dollar to Indian rupee is about $90,
Yeah.
which is like if you're going abroad, like I'm going 4 times in a year, then you see the difference, you in terms of spending that you actually do as compared to what you were doing prior. So, I mean, it's a complex world. It's different theories coming all together. You understand sometimes, you just don't. But if you're curious, like I am, so then you really start to dig deep into it, and then you get it. You know exactly what Bitcoiners have been telling all about. So it's a journey. I mean, Bitcoin, as you said, you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. So I've kind of, even in 2021, I lost all my money doing shitcoinery. I didn't know understand. 2022 when FTX happened and I lost again a lot of money. Then I've kind of gone through this lost phase twice in my life. That's what made me a hardcore Bitcoin maxi. Now I understand that Bitcoin is the only global, decentralized, digital, immutable, non-sovereign, energy-backed store of value. Nothing else really matters. Blockchain is a piece of shit. It's just a database. I mean, you look at the L1s that are happening, Sui, Solana. This is all a dog eat dog, zero sum game at the end of the day, because there's no value accrual to Ethereum because if you're BlackRock, you're not just going to be building on Ethereum. Like Stripe is not building on Ethereum. It's launching its own tempo, and Circle is on its own stable coin. So I mean, and if you're into depths of Web3, as they call it, like you and me, then you start to understand the pulse of this. It's all it's like a fiat like Ponzi, but named it as blockchain Web3. So but it's a journey again. You've just got to go through the pain, endure it, and then you have to understand. And then you really, once the light bulb goes inside your head, and you understand what the real deal is, then you just don't shy away from it. Then you keep, pouncing on that. This is the real deal.
So 2017, you took time to understand blockchain. You went deep, invested
No,
in
no, no,
it.
no. 2017, I was just an investor. I was just going for the number go up, and I didn't understand anything. I lost money. That's a different stake, and I didn't care about it as well
Yeah,
because I lost money. I lost money. I mean, it's just like a gamble.
yeah,
2021, when I lost money, because that was considerate amount of money, then I really got into, man, I've got to get into depths of it, the weeds of it. And then when you understand it, then I mean, it just can't be undone, That's
yeah.
the point.
Once you see it, you can't unsee
You
it.
can't.
Super, super. That's such an interesting story. I am so glad that we were able to talk about that. So now, what do you think Bitcoin is? And you spoke a lot of words of energy backed, decentralized. Please help break some of that and explain. I don't. Let's say that I am a person who's successful, who's considering of why is there so much noise on Bitcoin? Why is BlackRock launching an ETF? Why it's become the biggest ETF? But I'm still on the edge. Help me understand, why do you think Bitcoin is the innovation and the sovereign store of value?
So, I mean, first of all, you've got to understand that, people generally don't go into the depths of it, but you've just got to understand and you've got to ask yourself a question: what is money? So money should be a neutral base layer for settlement of transactions and a final extinguisher of debt. Now, if money is controlled by sovereign nations, which is just since 1971 that we are on the fiat standard, people don't know this as well.
Yeah,
They think that our the rupee that the RBI issues, or the dollar that the US issues, that the Federal Reserve issues, this is backed by some kind of gold backing. There's no gold backing. Gold was neutral money that became money because of its malleability, because of the chemical characteristics. That it's and because of its stock to flow. It's difficult to mine gold. Generally the inflation rate in gold is not more than 2%, so you can't increase production by more than 2%. So it became a relatively stable store of value for 5,000 years.
yeah. One interesting anecdote on gold that I kind of like sometimes is that Newton tried to do alchemy for 10 years. And
Yeah,
when he was unsuccessful in alchemy, that's when he told Bank of England that this is the base layer of money. So,
exactly. Exactly. So geniuses get it pretty fast. I mean, they understand it, but of course, it's a different perspective whether you make money out of it or not. But the point is that gold was this credible, neutral base layer of money, and it took thousands of years of evolution to get there. for humans to figure out. We had rice stones, we had glass beads, we had different kinds of experiments in the past. But eventually, Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 came up with this perfect solution wherein the supply gets halved every 4 years. There's a halving in Bitcoin that happens. So the issuance gets dropped. I think 98.9% of Bitcoin has already been mined. The balance 1.1% will be over the next 100 years. And the stock to flow of Bitcoin is even better than gold. And the fact that Bitcoin cannot just be mined like that. You just need a lot of atoms that are these electrons have to flow through those pipes, those computers, those ASIC machines that are running the mining for Bitcoin, and this energy that is required to solve these computational puzzles to mine a block of Bitcoin, which happens every 10 minutes, is what gives Bitcoin the credible neutral energy layer, the base layer. And energy is money. Elon Musk has said it.
Yeah.
You can replicate everything. You just cannot replicate energy.
Yeah.
I
You
mean, me and
cannot
you
click a
sitting here.
button and create
Yeah,
energy.
exactly. You just can't click a button and create energy. So energy is money, and that's why commodities have had value. I mean, at the end of the day, gold is a commodity, Bitcoin is a commodity. Now you have to understand that we're living in a digital world. Now gold cannot be. It's not transportable, and it's also not so easily verifiable. Bitcoin being on the internet, it's very easily verifiable, and I can send you Bitcoin and you can send me back Bitcoin very easily. It settles in 10 minutes. So it's verifiable on the blockchain. So, I mean, living in a digital world, you've got to understand that digital has obviously got more value than the physical world. And when people say that Bitcoin is 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 uh, is is not it's not physical, it's actually physical, because at the end of the day, the energy that powers it is the physicality around it.
Yeah.
It's not a proof of stake network, it's a proof of work. You've got to climb that wall of work in order to reach or mine a block. So that's work. That's energy which is expended into the system. And the kind of energy that is being expended today is about the computational power of the Bitcoin blockchain today is about one zeta hash, which is one with 21 zeros
Yeah.
per second. That's the computational power. And the energy power is about 180 gigawatts of energy, which is like more than a couple of Scandinavian countries combined together annual production of energy. So it's a lot of energy which is backing the network. And if all of the servers in Google, Amazon, Microsoft, OpenAI, Twitter, everything combined together, they would not be able to, even if they were to try, they would not be able to hack the Bitcoin blockchain for more than 10 minutes. So it's like impossible. It's an impenetrable wall. It requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of computation. And that's what the power of Bitcoin really is. But people have to go through that journey to understand it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's what gives Bitcoin the real perfected money, as we call it, for humans to interact with, to be the base layer of the future of finance. So I think we're going to go to a Bitcoin standard, but it's going to be a long journey. The
Yeah.
Bitcoin standard does not mean that everything is only Bitcoin and nothing else runs on it. I differ with some axes on this one. There are going to be fiat currencies, there are going to be sovereign nations, there are going to be countries which are going to issue their own currencies. But the
Yeah.
point is that the global base layer of settlement between corporations and countries and central banks will be Bitcoin. So that's what I
Which is
call
the
the Bitcoin.
equivalent US dollar is the today oil which service global trade. And in the Bitcoin or hyper Bitcoinized or Bitcoin standard world,
No, I think
likely
the
a
US
large
dollar will
portion of
always.
that could be Bitcoin
No, US
potentially.
dollar is just the currency which actually is dominating world trade. So about 58% of global world trade is still in dollars. 70% of global reserves are in dollars. But the point is, dollar is just a free floating fiat currency. It's the eventual underlying system of global finance is the US Treasury market. It's the treasury. It's the debt of the US government. Now, when you understand that a debt is the bedrock of modern finance, so that debt has to keep growing. It's like a Ponzi, otherwise it will collapse if it doesn't keep growing, because the collateral value has to be maintained. And on the other side is a bearer asset, which you can just hold in your wallet. And if you transfer it to Abhay, then it becomes Abhay's. And there's no counterparty risk, except for that you lose your coins and I lose my coins because of some hack or because of our poor storage or custody solutions. Except for those risks, if you understand that Bitcoin is a bearer asset and it's credible, it's neutral, it can be used by enemies, and it can be easily exchangeable, then you understand the light bulb moment that, okay, something which is credible, non sovereign, energy backed, and digital, and decentralized, and non and it can be easily transportable. That I think should be the base layer of global finance. It will evolve in the next 15 to 20 years. It will take time because we've been living in this fiat experiment for about 56 years, 55 years now, since 1971. So I think people have just forgotten what money really is. And we just tend to think that, okay, I've invested in real estate, and real. See, the point is, when you invest in real estate as an investment, what you're doing is you're pricing out the other people who are just joining in the workforce and want to own a home. So you're just pricing those people out. And this is happening across the world.
Yeah.
But that's a different story. I mean, I can keep lapping around microeconomics and Bitcoin I mean, for 12 hours straight on a podcast. But I think we'll deviate too much from the topics. Please go
So,
ahead.
Suvit, what was your friends and family reaction since when in 2021 onwards, when you started talking or thinking about this? Did people think that you've lost it? You are under a lot of stress, and maybe, or what was the reaction, and
They still call me crazy, man.
so what has been the general? Did someone try to counsel you, help you, and then what has been your response to some of that help, which is coming from a good place? But what has been your response, and what has been your journey related to friends and family?
So my brother, I'll tell you, is much more successful than me. He's my elder brother. He's my cousin brother, and he's invested in different parts of the country in real estate, and he runs a pretty good pre-engineered building, kind of a prefabricated building setup. He manufactures them and installs it. He's building warehouses for Amazon and Flipkart in India and whatever. So he's always telling me that, real estate, real estate, real estate. And I was like, boss, real estate only should have invest or utility value, not investment value. But then he doesn't understand it, and he's actually he's made it pretty big, with real estate. He has cash flowing business, and he has a cash flowing real estate position. Bitcoin unfortunately doesn't have cash flow, but over my last 4 years, I've outperformed in terms of percentage growth of wealth as compared to him. Why? Because Bitcoin is appreciated much more than real estate. So I think the best thing is not to explain to people too much, because I've really tried that and nobody really understands it and nobody fucking cares. It's just that you've got to outgrow them over the next 10 years to make them understand, oh shit, this guy was right all along. And that's the journey of life. You just can't explain it to everybody, because I've miserably failed at even explaining to my family members, who still, as I said, call me crazy. But my portfolio will actually, in terms of dollar values, when it grows to much more than what they have in the next 10 years, then they will understand, oh shit, man, he was speaking the truth all along. Why didn't we listen to him? Then they come back to you for salvation or for whatever.
So it
I
is
think
like
it's
what
time
Satoshi
has
had
to.
said in 2012. I think if you don't get it, then I don't have the time to. I don't want to waste my time.
Exactly.
I'm not paraphrasing it correctly, but something to that extent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's about it. You just can't explain it to everybody. If you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. And in order to get it, you just need to go through that 100 hours, then 1,000 hours, then maybe 10,000 hours. If you really, really, really. And not everybody has the time, to be honest. If you're born into a family which is a lot of entrepreneurs, and they're all pretty successful and doing much better than you, then obviously there's certain amount of ego also that comes in between, that, okay, what this guy is trying to tell me, I mean, what do you think I am? So it's like, it's better to just stay quiet, keep shut, and as British Hotel says, just shut the fuck up, let Bitcoin do its job. I kind of don't agree with a lot of things that he says, but this is one thing that I agree with.
Okay, Suvit, What do you think about decentralization, and why is decentralization important in the Bitcoin context?
So, I mean, as I said very clearly, you need a neutral global bedrock of finance, you know. So, and what is a neutral asset? A neutral asset is that enemies can use it,
Hmm.
you know. And if Russia and in the US both are enemies, but they both can transact and use it, and and none of them controls it, that's a perfectly neutral global reserve asset. I think Bitcoin completely falls into that bucket. So, and the fact is that Bitcoin is decentralized because it's so much of computing power, and it's uh, so well distributed geographically across the world that even after the China ban, when Bitcoin's hash rate dropped by 40% in a week or two,
Yeah.
even then, Bitcoin did not die. And Bitcoin's graveyard has been dug by all these economists since last 15 years for like 100,000 times. But Bitcoin just keeps coming back from the ashes, and it keeps rising even more than the last time. So, you know, what do you call that? It's the perfect opposite of a Ponzi. It's just that Bitcoin is growing as per this power law of adoption. It's an option on its own adoption. So more and more people figure out, because people do understand that there's something wrong going on. I mean, the middle class is getting crushed.
Yeah.
I mean, because Bitcoin is not only a finance subject, or not only a philosophy subject, or not only an energy subject. It's a subject which takes a lot of time to understand, because people are getting there's so much of economic inequality. I mean, the top 10% of the US, their assets have grown from $71 trillion to $107 trillion, which is about 45% increase in the last 5 years. Whereas the bottom 50%, their wealth has grown from 2 trillion to 4 trillion, which is like a blip on the screen in the last 5 years. And they're struggling so much. And this is not only a US story, it's a story across the world. Even in India, the wealth inequality is pretty high. The guys who really make it, they make like 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs a day, and which is like, you know, about $150,000 a month.
Yeah.
And these guys are really enjoying
Hmm.
a grand lifestyle. But the guys who are I mean, 90% of the people or 80% of the people, they just don't, they're not able to make ends meet because of the inflation, because of the cost of goods and services rising, because of housing and affordability, and so many things that they feel that something is wrong, that
Yeah.
they're not able to match up to society, and then there's no socio-economic mobility, that you just can't climb the ladders of success like earlier generations could. But then they just don't understand what the root cause of is.
Yeah, I
So
really liked how what is the problem Joe presented that I don't know if you got the opportunity to see through that video. There is this video on Bitcoin that I think the name of the gentleman is Joe. He has made a video of,
Joe Kanasare or Joe
yeah.
Consorti?
No, not Joe Concerti. I'll put this in the show notes and the link. There
Uh-huh.
is this. If you Google what is the problem, and that
Acha.
should throw up this. Have you seen that video by any chance?
I'm sorry, I might have just skipped it, man, or might have just missed my attention.
Yeah. So there is
Just send it to
this
me.
very,
I like to
yeah,
watch.
I'll send it across. This is a very interesting piece where he talks about that there is an island where there is Futello, and there is this other guy
I've
who
seen that video, but I don't think it's by Joe. It's by something else. But okay, anyways, yeah,
yeah,
I kind
yeah.
of.
Yeah, that this is exactly where as you were saying, that people can feel there's something wrong but they can't pinpoint what is wrong, and then he connects the dots to suggest that how because money is broken, everything else which is built on top of it feels broken.
Correct. And money is the most important energy that we humans store. You know what I mean? Money is something which we actually expend a lot of work, time, and when that time expended, we get that money, and then we hope that that money will hold its value. But eventually, we're all forced to become gamblers in the stock market, because, you know, at the end of the day, we know that the money is not going to hold its value. So we just keep investing in the stock market. We keep investing it into real estate, just to outgrow the level of debasement that the central banks are going through. and the level of inflation. It's just that, but it's a tough subject for everybody to grasp.
Yeah, yeah,
It's 99% of the people just like to be told what to be done from someone with authority. They don't like to dig deep into a subject and understand, oh shit, this is the problem, and I got to become a sovereign individual, and I got to hold my own keys, and I got to become a Bitcoiner, and this is the perfect money ever designed. And but I think the realization will come. So it's a journey. It's a journey.
yeah, yeah. So if I'm a very successful entrepreneur or a person who's working in a
Hmm.
high-paying industry, maybe tech, banking, finance, or something, and I have a house and a car, and I'm having a good lifestyle, I'm paying my EMIs, and I'm building wealth by investing in mutual funds and have some rainy day savings. What would be your recommendation, if any, to say why should I even bother about Bitcoin? Why should I care about Bitcoin?
You don't need to. You don't need to. If you're doing well in life, you don't need to. But keep your eyes open. This system that is designed to allow the collateral value to always go up, if the wind starts to flow in the other direction, and if it starts to unwind and the collateral value goes down, which means that, let's say, your real estate that you live in or you've rented out to other people, if it starts to go down in value, then the tears will come faster from your eyes than actually the system will melt down faster than the tears can come out of your eyes. So your happiness will be gone. So the point is that it's always better to be cognitive.
Hmm.
It's not necessary that you actually invest in Bitcoin, but it's better to at least understand it. And that's why I never recommend anybody to buy Bitcoin. I always tell them to, okay, look around you, read those books, see these news letters, go through these videos that I'm going to be sending you, go through this presentation that I made, what is money, and if you like it, then you invest it, but only after you understand it. But the point is, people are so engrossed in their fiat lifestyles, in the show offs, in owning a great car, and versus owning a, I mean, depreciating assets. They just don't really, just to show off to other people that how successful you are. I think it's a very uh, it's a lame way. It's a fiat way of living life. The real wealth should be that you don't need to show off to anybody.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the point is that 90% of the people are actually in the show off business in
yeah,
the fiat economy. That
yeah,
look, the kind of car that I own, the house that I have, and what.
yeah,
But once this starts to melt down, and if by chance, I think the chances of it are about 5%, because even if it starts to melt down, then they'll start printing ocean loads of money more.
yeah,
So the system is designed in such a way that it'll just have to inflate away the.
yeah.
So I think
The-
the savers will get really punished. And when people who save money, then they understand all this, then I think they will see the light at the end of the tunnel, that that Bitcoin is the only solution to it. So I think, as Jeff Booth says, with technological advancements, with AI now coming in, so what is AI basically doing? It's not only a technology. It's not technology used to be a tool,
yeah,
but AI is a technology which itself can use tools. So it's very deflationary.
yeah,
And Bitcoin and AI are at a perfect intersection. They're joined at the hip. They're both deflationary. On the third side is the inflationary monetary system that we have, where the need to print is the only final outcome. We all know that. So I think these three forces are colliding with each other at an incredible pace, and eventually one of them will have to give up. you know but I don't think AI and Bitcoin are going to give up. The inflationary monetary policy will have to be wound down, or it will have to really inflate away the debt by printing more and more and more, and which will actually give rise to even more income inequality across the world.
yeah,
So I think at the end of the day, these three forces, which are the biggest forces in the world today, AI, Bitcoin, and the inflationary monetary policy, they're all colliding, and they're coming at a very fast meteoric pace to each other.
yeah.
I think at one point you will see that the system starts to unravel, like what you see in Japan today. The
Correct.
Japanese yields have risen to 1.03% for the 10-year. The 30-year is about 2.71%, and I think it's the highest ever in history.
Yeah.
So I think what is happening is the Japanese people are understanding that with 260% debt to GDP, there is a line in the sand somewhere. Now, if you want to print more money and increase your debt because money is debt, there will somewhere be a market forcing reaction, which the markets will force the yields to go up. Now, what happens when yields start to go up? The interest rate starts to go up too, because
Yeah.
eventually the central bank has to follow with an interest rate hike, which the
Yeah.
Bank of Japan will also do now
Yeah.
on, I think, the 18th or 19th of December. So when these interest rates starts to go up, then you see that the cost of capital becomes much more exorbitant. Real estate was always a low interest rate phenomenon. If you have low interest rates, you can refinance your real estate, and also that you can pay the EMI pretty easy, which is easy on your pocket because it's real estate is basically a cash flow game. You just got to understand that if you're paying your EMI and the EMI is less, then you obviously make much more because you can also rent it out. But if the interest rates go up, then real estate becomes a really bad investment. The price will start to tank. And I think when these collateral values start to decrease, then is the time when the light bulb will go off in many people's minds that what the hell is this happening, man? I mean, I never thought this could happen with me in my life. And then you come to the realization, okay, something is broken now, and then they will start printing a lot of money, and then bitcoin will rip again to like 300, 400, $500,000, and then people will be flabbergasted. Okay, what the hell is this happening, man? But they just don't understand it now. But I think a lot of people are now realizing it. I see a lot of entrepreneurs in India also who discreetly come to me, not really explicitly, but then they ask me these questions and I tell them, okay, this is what's really behind the scenes. You've got to understand. And then they see, okay, and that's the first baby step that they take. Okay, let me invest something.
Yeah.
So I just don't want to keep lapping on because this is your show and I'm the guy who's just like, but I'm so passionate about this subject, Abhay, because I understand the plumbing of the monetary system.
Yeah.
Most people do not. And
Yes. Yeah. So,
it's a subject.
one place that I differ from you on whenever someone comes to say, "Hey, what should I do on Bitcoin?" Generally, I tell them first buy something, whatever small amount you want to buy, because what happens I've seen is that if I have given books to people and even gifted them, generally they are decorating the bookshelves, and people don't take out the time, and they keep catching dust. But if they put in a small amount of money, whatever amount that they might feel good with, and which they are willing to lose if they don't think that it's a good investment, then that generally has worked best for me. So I've tried both techniques of saying, hey, I'll share with you something, read, come back, or take this, or read Bitcoin Standard, or anything fatter than Bitcoin Standard like Broken Money or something will not even get opened. But even Bitcoin Standard, which is like a 2 day or 3 day read at best, could also lie on the desk. But
I think
if you
one very
just
good book, Abhay, that's recently come out is by my friend Fred Krueger and Ben Sigmund, which
okay,
is Bitcoin 1 million, the final
ah,
chapter of Fiat. I think that's a very no bullshit book. It shows the power law, it also shows the graphical illustrations, and it shows comparisons between Bitcoin, real estate, and gold and all these asset classes. And I think this is a pretty somber book, which does not really get into any thesis,
hmm,
but it just gives you real facts, hard data. And I think
hmm.
generally people like to read that. So I think if you could give a suggestion to your audience, to your friends, ask them to go and read this book. This is a pretty incredible book, in my opinion. So,
Definitely, we'll
but
put
yeah,
that
I
in the
agree with you because I think that's the best way. What you just said, that let people buy $1,000, $2,000,
correct.
whatever,
Whatever you, yeah,
whatever's dispensable. Like
yeah,
even if it goes to zero, you don't really care. So just buy that small amount because once you're invested, then you start looking into it
great,
and you feel more inquisitive. So I think
correct.
that's the best strategy. I will also follow that, but it's just that the kind of people that I meet, either they want to go really big or they just don't want to go into it. So,
Yeah,
if I can inspire people somehow to invest $1,000, $2,000, just like you're doing, I think I'd be very happy. So kudos
yeah.
to you, man. Kudos to you
No, no,
first.
thank you so much. But I've tried both methods, and I've seen that If I tell most times, if people are serious about it, and then and most of the times people also don't know how to go about, and if they go to a generic exchange, most of the times there's so much distraction with altcoins and other things, they get
Yeah.
confused. And so generally, what I recommend is, in the jurisdiction that they are, try and find a Bitcoin only or something, and just do a simple one investment or whatever amount. And those who do the investment kind of give me a signal that they are really interested in knowing about it. And those who are not willing to put a small amount of money, which most people who would come for advice, might be, for them it'll most likely be a trivial sum of money. And versus trying to say, hey, I'll give you the book, and if you read it, it'll change your life. But likely it'll just lie and say, yeah, yeah, I'll find that Sunday in which I'll read that book, but that Sunday never comes.
So I think the market will force its hand somewhere in
Yes.
the next 1 year or 2 years, when you will see a mini or perhaps a full blown sovereign debt crisis play out. And I think that is when the light bulb moment will come for a lot of people, because you've got to go through some pain in order to
Yeah.
understand, and then you actually start to dig deep, what actually is wrong. So we will see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
But I think I'm very optimistic for the future, because Bitcoin is such a perfect solution for a messy world that we live in. It's just that this is the signal in the noise, and we just have to figure out. And the problem with the 21st century is that we are all flooded with so much of information today.
Yeah.
So much of information is at everybody's fingertips at
Yeah.
every second of their lives, that actually the most important job of a person who wants to be successful is to actually decipher that signal from that noise. Like
Correct. Correct.
altcoins and like fiat economy, like all these assets, these are all noises, and Bitcoin is the pure signal. But if you're able to figure out that signal, then you will really do over the next 10 years pretty well in your life, and you will outpace everybody else in your peer group. And that's what I'm planning to do, and that's what you're planning to do, I guess. So we will see.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
an incredible journey, man.
Great. Anything that you would want to share in terms of, in your journey, which was the things as you discovered the various aspect of Bitcoin? What were the aspects which really kind of stood out to you, and they inspired you to dig more on Bitcoin?
So I think the first thing that happens is that when the number goes up, like during COVID, it went from 3,000, $4,000 to like 60. And like, I mean, you're like asking yourself, I mean, what is happening, man? What is happening? What exactly is this happening? What is this phenomenon? Then you dig deep and you understand that the Federal Reserve printed about $6 trillion. The European Union, the European Central Bank printed 3 trillion. Japan printed this. So it's like the global money supply was like 40% of the global supply of money was added in a year. You know, so I mean, then you understand that okay, 40% of my hard work that I put in all through my life earning this money has been debased in 1 year. you know and that's the reason why all these assets are going up. That's the only thing you need to understand. So that is the first thing you need to understand. The second thing is, obviously, when you understand that okay, my hard work, my time on earth that I've spent working my ass off to feed my family, to make a good living, to have a good standard, to make them enjoy life, all this is being debased by the click of a button by a central banker. Then you understand the central banking is a real big Ponzi scheme. I'm not against banks.
Yeah.
Fractional reserve lending also I'm not against. I think it's pretty much necessary. And I think even on a Bitcoin standard, you could have fractional reserve banking. It's just that there will be no booms and bust cycles, because this will happen so quickly that if a bank is insolvent, you just withdraw money and you'll find out that the emperor has no clothes, it's running naked. And then it will be like a quick fix rather than a systemic problem like it has become today. Like you cannot allow the banks to fail because they become too systemic, too big to fail. So I think the point is that then you understand that okay, central banking is a scam and Bitcoin is the opposite of a Ponzi. It's actually the non-scam. And then you go to understand history of money. Then you got to go dig deep and find out how Bitcoin is energy backed. What are the electrons that are flowing that backs it? What is the energy? What is the computational? and why proof of work is the only real deal, not proof of stake. And then all these things come into the picture, and then you kind of slowly, gradually, day by day, you fit in the things in the puzzle, and then the puzzle gets solved over a period of 1,000 hours journey, and then you're like, shit, man, this is what I had been looking for all my life. And then you go allocate most of your capital into Bitcoin rather than just jumping around making diversified bets of stock market, real estate, etc. But I think it's the higher the level of puzzle solving that you've done in your brain, the higher your conviction becomes and the higher your allocation becomes, and the other way around. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think people will figure this out, but I think it's a 20-year journey, in my opinion. So,
Got it.
we will see.
And from an India perspective, where most people that I speak to say, "Hey, I know this is FIU compliant. You guys are FIU compliant on GetBit, but is it fully legal? And has the government blessed it? Uh, what do you think would be the next 5 years looking like? And from a government perspective on Bitcoin?"
See, I think the government is never going to fully embrace it for sure. See, the dollar is the biggest threat to the government, and India is not a free capital control. There's a lot of capital control, so it's not a fully convertible economy. So, the fact of the matter is that the dollar is the cleanest of the dirtiest shirts in the laundry, but all of them are dirty any which way. So the point is that uh, till the time every country which is running an inferior currency as compared to the dollar because of the global reach of the dollar and because of the global network effects of the dollar. So I think India also, the point is, I think, the two biggest things that go in our favor are also our bane. So we take a lot of pride in our culture.
Yeah,
We're like 10,000 years old, 15,000 years old. But this pride does not allow us to see what the immediate problems are and what are the solutions to that. So that's kind of a paradoxical thing.
yeah,
Also, the fact of the matter is that we are a 1.4 billion or 1.45 billion population country. To manage such a big country, it's very difficult. If you're a small country, then you have less people, then you can tell them exactly this is what needs to be done, this is the need of the hour. But then there are 1.4 billion people, how many people can you really educate? So it's a very difficult journey.
yeah.
So I think, given these two factors, it's, in my opinion, I'm very skeptical. I don't think the government will ever fully embrace it. Yes, it's legal to own in India, no doubt about it. FIU is the single agency now which has been created, and you can actually register with them, and then they're the overseeing authority. Obviously, your GST and your TDS will be deducted from your transactions once you're withdrawing, once you're selling that into US dollars or to INR or whatever, and then that's a good thing in my opinion. But to fully embrace it, I don't think it's going to be, because I
Got it.
think that it's the smaller countries which have. India has a lot to lose if it embraces it. Let's talk at it from the government's point of view, and I don't really blame them. Because if I had been in their position, I would have done the same. The governments want more control,
Yeah,
right? So if you want to control 1.4 billion people, how do you control it? Through the power of your own currency, through the power of your own central bank. And you're not going to be able to just tell them, okay, buy Bitcoin and you can trade in Bitcoin and there will be no capital gains tax. And then you can also accept payment of goods and services in Bitcoin, and we don't mind that. And, the point is, because they will not be able to have the authority to tax it then, and to monitor it if they come out openly like that, unless and until everybody wants to disclose very fairly, which Indians also don't want to do,
no
honestly.
one across the world wants to
No
do
one
it.
across the world wants to disclose, okay, this is what I earned and this is okay, I'm willing to pay the tax on Bitcoin, even though it's a neutral, credible, non-sovereign asset. The point is, I don't blame them. I'm very bullish, that's why, on Indians, a little less bullish on India, and very bearish on the Indian government, to be very honest. Because I think that's the irony. It's like, and all these countries, big countries, the small countries like Bhutan, El Salvador, and maybe you see the United Arab Emirates, which are actually embracing Bitcoin, they will start to do much bigger, much better over a longer period of time. During the arc of history, you will see 10 years back in retrospect, in hindsight, that this is what has actually happened. But for a big country like India and China, it's actually difficult if you really want to maintain government control. If you really want to be like a anarcho-capitalist society where it's like everything is determined by the free market and the government only has role in policing, law and order, laws, and maybe the military, then I think it's a great thing. But I don't think India is heading in that direction. So that's why I always say that you got to live with the times. It's good that it's legal. The Supreme Court ban also that was lifted by the Supreme Court in 2020 also created a pretty strong tailwind for it. But eventually, the creation of the FIU and I think it's a good step, positive step. But I think India is a bureaucracy first country, so it's difficult to get through the bureaucracy. And in order for the bureaucracy to understand that, you've got to give up your power, and nobody wants to give power, give away their power. So it's difficult, it's a complex. India is not for beginners, is all I can say.
Yeah. It's so much fun talking to you, Suvit. We can keep going for a couple of hours and not realizing time. So, but I want to be mindful of your time. So, what would be, if you had to give one advice to a successful person like you, who is trying to think about Bitcoin on the edge, what would your one advice be to that person related to Bitcoin?
So, I mean, if he's really thinking about it, he doesn't really need my advice, to be honest, because then he's curious himself to understand what is going on. But if I were to nudge him a little bit, I would just say, um, as you said, I mean, I got this tagline, okay, invest $2,000 and just forget about it. And it's $2,000. You won't even mind if I tell you and you actually lose the entire money, but just invest it and see what happens in 5 years. And I think that's the best thing that I could tell them. In fact, I've learned this from you now that I will nudge them through the line because it's important to nudge them a little bit so that they cross the line rather than keep telling them theses and read this book which is going to lie on the shelf. So I think I really got this. I got this brilliant, fantastic idea from you that okay, just invest whatever you are willing to lose and then see what happens in 5 years. I think this is the only advice I can tell them because it's important. I mean, if you invest, then you learn more about it.
Yeah,
It's like your incentives are aligned.
yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you so much for that,
No,
Abhay.
I'll steal that line and I'll make it my line and say it was always my line to say if there's one advice from Suveet, it is invest $2,000 and see what happens in 5 years. So that's the one advice that we'll have, and we will definitely need to do a round two, Suveet, for sure. For our audience, if they want to reach out to you or find you, is there any place that you would recommend that they can find you and interact with you?
So, I mean, my company, which is into the loan aggregation business, if you're looking out for loans, collateralized lending, secured lending, home loans, or loans against property, you can always hit me up on LinkedIn. That's Suveet. I mean, I can share it and you can just put it in the
Yeah,
show notes. But if you really are looking out on your Bitcoin journey, I think the more important thing is that you just follow me on Twitter, which is India Bitcoin Man, @ India Bitcoin Man. I'm also doing a lot of Twitter spaces with a lot of Bitcoiners who are Bitcoiner maxis. So you can find me there and you can listen to my views. But I think the more important, if you want to start on the Bitcoin journey, you can just follow me on X and I post some content which I think should be interesting. So we will see.
great. Thank you so much, Suvit, for your time. Really appreciate you taking out the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you as well, Manabe. It was really fantastic.
Crypto products and NFTs are unregulated and can be highly risky. There may be no regulatory recourse for any loss from such transactions.